Hello everyone, it's Annette Green here, back again with another video, and today it's all about organization. We're going to talk about how I organize my dies and my stamps and any other tips I can come up with for you. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to take you back to how I was doing it to how I'm doing it now, and this could change again and again over years. If you are a crafter and you have organized before, you know that it's constantly evolving and changing. At least it is for me, and I think it would be for most everyone. Sometimes you can't find the supplies that you used to use all the time, and you have to make a switch to something different. Sometimes you prefer, after a while, that you want to use something different. The main thing is to remember that this is my system, and I'm not telling you you should do it this way. Everybody has a different way that they think when they're looking for a stamp or a die. So you have to do what works for you, and I'm going to show you what works for me. Okay, and the other thing you should know is that I am a designer for Elizabeth Craft Designs. So a consumer and not a designer might do things completely different as well. So you have to remember my perspective comes from being a designer of the stamps and dies themselves, and being with the company Elizabeth Craft Designs. It has other designers whose dies and stamps I also own, like David and Yosette and Angelica. So let's start with how I used to do it, and that is by taking the packaging or an image of the packaging, because I don't always get the packaging as a designer until way, way later. So when I want to organize my dies right away, I might have to go to the website and do a screenshot of the image that's, showing it for sale on the website. So that's probably what I've done here with this very first release of mine. So I take it and I have to trim it down to fit into these little frosted envelopes that I found years ago. And these are Sizzix ones. And the measurement on these, and I'm not sure if they're still available. I think so. End to end, 9 inches by 6 1/4. So sometimes you do have to trim down dies or stamps as far as, what you're actually putting them on. This is, I'll show you, it's chipboard with the packaging printed and pasted to it and then a magnet. So that's my basic method right there. And so to get that to fit, sometimes you have to trim down the packaging or something like that. So what kind of chipboard I used to use was fairly flimsy. In fact, I did start off using the packaging and putting a magnet sheet on the back, and it was super flimsy, and I would not recommend that, because if you have a magnet on a flimsy sheet, now with a big die like this, these are 2 huge doilies, but if you had a bunch of words like this one and you had a flimsy sheet, as soon as you went in here to go, handle this, dies might pop right off of here. So that's why I like to use chipboard. So I started with black chipboard. This is probably the graphics brand that you can find everywhere, craft stores, scrapbook stores, and Amazon, of course. So I started with black, and so that the black magnet sheet sort of blended in, and that was fine. I didn't mind that. That was good. So I do that. The magnet sheets are adhesive backed, and I'm going to show you what I use now. And then I was storing them so that when I had the envelope, tucked in like that, this was the smooth side, I could see the image better. Okay, another thing I like to do, especially because I'm a designer, but regardless, some crafters would like to do this as well. I put right on the packaging with a label maker the year of the release, what time of the year it was, and, for instance, in this case, for me, it's important to know this was my very first release. I don't remember the release name way back then, honestly. So I just put first release and put them in order, number order. Now, I like to have mine where all the dies are together and then all the stamps go with that release as well. Some people like to store all their stamps over here and all their dies over there. This is the way I like to do it because of the way that I design, and when I'm trying to use a collection in its fullest, everything I have is together. Okay, so that's how I used to do it. It's very similar. I like the system. I have just kind of improved upon it, in my opinion, a little bit here. So I have the same type of envelope, but do you see how nice and clear it is? It's very shiny and clear compared to, let me grab Oh, and you may notice this I didn't even mention, the colors behind there. It's a piece of cardstock. I always, just in case I'm pulling a whole bunch of things and then I, want to put them all away, I want to keep them color coded. So I put a piece of cardstock in for the coordinating stamps with a collection so they don't get all mixed together. These are all this bright green cardstock. That's all part of the Sunny Days release. Okay, so you can see the difference between the packaging maybe and the light. It's a little bit hard with this light, but this is much more like crystal clear. This is frosty. These are the Sizzix ones. These I will link in the description. They're from Amazon and they don't have a snap. It's just a nice little tuck, little pocket, just like the Sizzix ones. And since I said snap, I will say if you find any online that have snaps, I would advise against it. And here's why. Back in the day when I was a Close to My Heart consultant, they had a snap on the back of all their stamps. When you went to flip through and pull some out, first of all, it added bulk because by the time that double plastic snap, both parts and the envelope it came in were put together, it added almost a 1/4 of an inch of extra space between all your stamp sets. So this is nice and flat, nice and smooth. And also the ones with the snaps, I used to get them hung up on each other when I'd go to put one away. The snap would hit the, the one behind it and not good. So I would avoid snaps. They have some of these that don't just tuck, but they have like a little Velcro strip. That's great if you feel like that's going to last for you. I go in and out of these constantly. So I think just the little tuck flap is the best option for me. Okay, so this is Sunny Days, like I said. This is my spring release from 2025, so that is also listed right here and on the stamps as well. And something I just did today, which I really, really like, and I'm going to take you over to my shelf and show you. I took that same chipboard. By the way, I switched to white chipboard for all the dies. Still use the black magnets, but white chipboard. I don't know why. I can buy this in bulk on Amazon. It's not quite as thick as the black, but it's super strong and the magnets do not pop off. I think it's like a 100 sheet pack for like nothing. So I'll link that. Not nothing, but cheap. So what I did is I cut a 12 by 12 sheet down to 2 pieces, 10 inches long, 6 inches wide each, and then I got out my label maker and I labeled the same way I have on the package. And then I like to round the corners. I don't like those square corners. I don't mind them at the bottom, but I want them round up here, just in case you hit it with your hand or whatever. It's a little bit softer looking. So I'll show you how I use those as dividers over on my shelf over there. Okay, and since we were just talking about labels, I'm going to go ahead and label this one Romantic Revival Fall 2025. That's my most recent release that came out in October. So I use my Brother P-Touch. It's a really old model, probably the very first one. But you know what? It still works great. There's no need to replace it. And I have recently found labels like the cartridge to refill. It's not Brother P-Touch brand, but it works and it's on Amazon. And I don't know if you noticed, but it had a split peel off strip in the back instead of trying to get that thing started and get your thumbnail in there to get that one label started. It has a split down the middle, so you just kind of bend the label a little bit and you can peel them off super fast. You saw how I did that. Okay, so that's ready for the next one. Let's go over to my shelf and take a look. It's a little dark in the craft room, but we're going to do it anyway. A lot of you have seen this in the past. I still have it. I still love it. This is my library cart. And, I do not use other companies' brands anymore. All my Graphic 45 is gone. I don't have anybody else's dies or stamps, just Elizabeth Craft Design. So this makes it a lot easier for me to keep things all in one place. I don't have to have too many things in other places at all. And so what we see here are those divider cards, right? And then my dies and stamps. So I'm going to do them back to front. So fall is back there, spring is in the front, and same here. And you notice right to left, it's the older to the newer, because I find that every time I'm coming over here to get my newest release to work with, I'm always walking right here because that's where they've always been. Okay, and what we see on the second shelf is all of Yoset's dies, all the cute and whimsical collection. I do have more down there that are older and maybe even retired, and including stamp sets. These are David's dies, which come in very large envelopes. I'm going to show you some of the things that I use to store his dies. And then way down here are some Planner Essentials dies, which, oops, those are going away for Elizabeth Craft Designs. So I have started to donate and weed down those. I need to go through that whole bin, but they're just in these cute little baskets from Target or, you know, the dollar store, something like that. Down below are David's Christmas and stamps. And I forget what's in there. Oh, these are old Planner Essentials related stamps. And then over here are all my embossing folders. Okay, so I just brought some of those things over here so you can see them with their new little tabs, which I love. And back there is my most recent, and I don't have anything there because I like to keep what I'm working on, my current release, right by my table back there. I have a little table right to the left of the table where I shoot my videos. So that's where I would keep Romantic Revival. And there are my cutting machines, my little scrubber, and some cutting mats. Okay, so these are currently the magnets that I'm using. I have moved through different brands. Honestly, I've only come across one brand that I didn't like at all. So I don't tend to buy like more than one pack at a time just to make sure I do like them. But these currently are the ones I do like, and they're 8 by 10, thickness is 20 mils, and I just cut them right in half and have 2 pieces that are 5 by 8. So for me, it works. Now, when you come to bigger dies, of course, you're going to use a bigger magnet, but this is basically the size that I need usually for those size dies I've been showing you in the packaging. So again, right there. Right? Okay, so what do you do when you have bigger dies? So David's sets tend to be a little bit bigger because he does the art journal specials, and sometimes those are big page dies. Sometimes they're really big, like this one, very long. Sometimes they're smaller like this, but even this is still bigger than mine, right? See how much bigger it needs to be? It really couldn't fit into this package, his dies. So I did find in those same clear, crystal clear envelopes, I found a little bit bigger size. Same brand, same everything, just a little bit bigger. And they don't have any bigger than this that I'm aware of. These are almost 9.5 wide, or long, I should say, by 7 inches. And that's what I have this set in. And quite honestly, moving forward with my new line that I'm coming out with called Everyday Memories, the page die has gotten bigger for the memory binders. So I'm going to be using this size moving forward when I start that release in February. Okay, so this is where it gets tricky. I was really happy finding these great frosted envelopes. They are actually $49 in Market frosted clear envelopes, right? It's got a big flap here, and I just cut David's packaging. I don't even know if I had to cut it, honestly. No, I don't think so. I don't see anything trimmed off here. Now, with David's stuff, I do put it on right on the packaging a lot of times. I don't think there's an instance where I have it on a board, honestly. This is all right on his packaging. And because his dies are so big, it's not teeny tiny little pieces, I don't have trouble with this. It seems to be working for me. And honestly, I don't go to David's dies quite as often as my own, of course. So it hasn't been a problem for me. Now, can you find these envelopes anymore? I don't think so. I tried to find some more and I couldn't. Either they were out of stock or discontinued. I think discontinued, but I'm telling you, they're almost 12.5 inches long by 6 3/4 wide. And they're great. Look, this is a page die right here. This whole thing is one die. So that's perfect. Now there's something else we can do if you can't find these. And if you can, let me know. So I started off with that. That was great. And then no more. What you can do is This is scrapbook.com. They have a lot of sizes, I have to say, of these frosted envelopes. They are frosted. You can tell they're not crystal clear, but they sell different sizes. And this one is 11.5 by 9. So, I mean, you know, here's a board, just chipboard with one full magnet on it, and that fits in that size envelope. I could probably use that for David's stuff and just spread things out. That would work. I just couldn't believe it when I found these because it fit perfectly for his packaging and his dies. Another example of that same scrapbook.com, same size. This is Yosette's new Dog Days dies. This is just called Dogs. I can't read the number because this is a screenshot from the, you know, the website. So it's a little bit blurry down there, but I get the gist and I can follow those pictures to put those dies together. But there are quite a lot of dies in here, and not teeny tiny little pieces, but just a lot of dies that I didn't want to lose. So this one is mounted to some craft chipboard that I had, and I still have to mount all the other ones in her release. So they'll all go in big envelopes like that. Okay, this is rather hard to show you. I tried to zoom out. You know, I'm not asking everyone to go out and buy a library cart. That's just something that was very convenient for me. And I love it because it tilts backwards and I can flip through to find the stamps and dies that I need very quickly. But these clear bins are everywhere. And oof, look at, you can hardly see it. They're usually in like the housewares department of Walmart and Target and the dollar store. They are wonderful. The only problem is if you wanted to pull this off of a shelf and go through it, which is probably what you'll have to do if you're just putting it on a shelf, because your shelf is going to tilt back like my library cart does. This is really heavy. You know, it's got a lot of dies and stamps in here. These are all my duplicates for my releases. I always get a clean set that I like to show when I'm demoing or on my YouTube channel. So I have all of these that I have to keep in a separate bin in the closet. Okay, a couple more tips. You might ask, well, how do you know what you have? How do you know, like say you want to find the die with the mushrooms on it. How do you know where to look? Well, I know my own releases, so I know where to go. But if not, I can go over there and flip pretty quickly on that library cart. That's why I love that thing. Now, some people like to make a little database, and I did start to do that one time many years ago. If you saw that video, I showed how I was doing a database where you could type in the search bar and type in like mushroom or heart or whatever. I just didn't keep it up. It was too much for me, but a lot of people do that, and that would be really super helpful. Another tip, clear storage is always preferred in my opinion. If it's in a box or a bin that I can't see, I'm going to forget about it. I'm not even going to think to look there. Okay, you may have gotten this far and said to yourself, this is not the way I would do it at all. I'm not a designer. I don't think by collection. When I want to make a card, I want to flip through similar things like all my sentiments together or all the animals together, for example. And that makes total sense. I get that. So if you are that type of person, and I'm thinking most of you are, what I would suggest to you, to me, is the easiest way we can do this, right? Make a copy of the packaging when you get it. This is a die. And you can label right on here where you file it away. And you can put all these into a notebook. So if you decided the best way to know where you're going to go to find something in this set is, let's say, maybe you have a nature category. Go with the broader category is what I would say, as opposed to animals, because one day you might be wanting a tree with an animal, maybe, but or some greenery. So go with the broader category because the animals are part of nature. The trees are nature, of course. That's what I would suggest. So you could label this, I've filed this under nature. And then you have a filing system, maybe similar to mine, where you have little dividers. And that's how you would find what you're looking for. And then you can keep all these in a notebook. Again, this could fall under nature, of course. Or if you want to go into subcategories, then maybe into mushrooms, tree stumps, whichever one in your brain makes you think that's what I'm looking for. Again, this one, birds, of course, but there's a birdhouse, a bird cage, and some flowers, small little flowers. So, it's going to be something you're going to have to make a decision about. And maybe you have several categories that you want to just list here, and then you move it to a database. So your database would be maybe the name of the set, and then over here in the description of what's in that set, you might have to list the words like birds, bird cage, birdhouse, small flowers. And then those become keywords that you can go into your database later and then type those into your keyword to find what set do I have that has small flowers or little birds or a birdhouse, for example. That's where I said earlier, I started a database like that and then I just got busy, honestly, and I didn't finish it. It is a big task to do it that way. But it can be done. You just have to make the time to do it little by little, and I think it would be very effective. If you don't have a ton of dies and stamps, then just keeping a notebook with a picture of everything is great. And then in the notebook, you can have dividers and pick your own categories that you feel comfortable with and sort these pictures in your notebook that way. Okay, and finally, my last tip to you is if you have a designated area for stamps and dies, let that be your area. Don't expand into the house. Don't put things under the bed. Don't put things up in the closet shelf. I mean, I store Christmas stuff up in the closet, yes. But what I'm getting at is we don't want to have so much that we're overwhelmed. And so what I tell myself is if I can't fit it on that library card anymore, something's got to go. I've got to start decluttering, going through some old things and seeing what I really use and need for the future. I just can't continue to gather and gather and gather without something going out of here. We live in an apartment. I have a bedroom of an apartment as my studio, and I can't go anywhere else in the house with my stuff. So that helps me to stay in control and limited to just what I need and use all the time. Okay, well, I'm going to go put these away and clean up a little bit more. So let me know in the comments, did you find this helpful? Do you have any helpful tips for the rest of us that I didn't mention that work for you and are especially super organized for you? I'd love to hear about it. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time in the next crafty video.